Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Today, I would like to discuss the current events in Ukraine and how these events will change the planetary, the global status quo, and a new world order will take shape. Because I know that, and probably you know that, based on the information that we are allowed to have from what's going on in Ukraine, and all the sanctions and all the troop movements and all that I will get into later, that's definitely going to be a different world order after this Ukraine situation ends, or maybe not, doesn't even have to end, but it's already it gives signs in various areas that a new world order is going to take it is in place. I will look at the transformations, the signs that this is really out in the open by analyzing the banking situation, the economic, the sanctions, the military, the media, the EU, and refugees issue. So I will analyze all these things and I will come with a conclusion based on what I think that the world will be after the Ukraine conflict settles down. I The Ukraine issue, I think, it's just the little problem that shows the connections of how the octopus's tentacles were behind all that, because this incident, Ukraine incident, shows the connections and interconnection between the other interests behind it. I think this was just I would say I will refer this to the presidency of Donald Trump here in the United States. And what am I talking about? Donald Trump's election as a president, I don't even know how he got elected under the circumstances. I have no idea, but that's for a different story. Nevertheless, when he got there and he assumed the presidency of the United States, I've seen angles, interests, and persons, institutions, organizations, they all came out from the woodwork, from the swamp. They came out, and it was very easy to see them. They came in the open. The way the mass media discussed and reported news, the political elites, even the politicians from Trump's supposedly own party, they came out and you could see who's who and what is behind them. Then you have non-profit organizations. Then you have schools. Then you have different so-called VIPs, so-called athletes, so-called artists, so-called scientists, university professors. All this, they are like a button that someone pushed, and probably, I don't understand really, this guy Trump, he triggered all these forces. They united, so you could see behind one election of one guy who was not better or worse, let's put it, than the previous ones, who are, oh my god, triggered and came out in the open, and you could see who's who, what's what, and how they're interconnected. The mass media, the news and entertainment, the education, the business, politicians, you could see them. So the same, I think, happened with Ukraine. When this Ukraine exploded, you could see immediately all these factors, how the banking system, economic system, military system, alliance system, all these things came in. Media, they reacted in a way that you could see who's who, what's what, and how they're interconnected. I'm going to talk about the banking. One thing that surprised me was when Switzerland, who succeeded in being neutral during the Second World War with that madman, you know, Austrian guy or German guy, however you want to call him, born in Austria, they remained neutral. Their banking system worked. Nobody, the banks in Switzerland did not close accounts for the Nazis and anything like. They were neutral. For this situation, Switzerland, the Swiss banks, some Swiss banks, are not neutral anymore. So that makes me conclude that this guy in Russia is even worse than the Austrian guy. Or, and the Russian threat is even bigger than the Austrian guy's threat, which I don't, maybe it is, maybe it's not. And three, I think that Switzerland is not neutral anymore. So it belongs to the group, the club, let's call it the club. That was the first one of the first, not first because it was lately, but and then the barring of important Russian banks from SWIFT, international, communication, the banking system and payment system that is used in the West and globally. There are some other ones in China and so on. When these guys were kicked out of SWIFT, the Russian banks and whatever, there was a big no-no. But nevertheless, they did it. That was another point in all this club. I'm going to the economic factor, the sanctions. Russia was already sanctioned from about 2013. I think that's the exact moment when I can pinpoint when Russia became the bad people. And I think in 2013 I started seeing souring the relation and having all kind of sanctions imposed on Russia by the United States. They started it. How? It was Edward Snowden. That's what started it in 2013. When Snowden, because the CIA, the smart guys in CIA, dropped him in Moscow because they were stupid, and they are. When they dropped him over there, they want extradition. They want Russia to extradite Snowden to the United States. There's no extradition and nothing signed between the treaty. No extradition treaty between the United States and Russia. Russians say it's because of the United States. Because Russia have a lot of people to claim for the United States and the United States doesn't want to sign that. I don't know. You can verify. So because there's no treaty, the Americans try to bully like they bully everybody else. Americans. I'm talking about the government. I'm not talking about the people. I'm not talking about the Americans in general. So let's make a distinction. When I'm talking about Americans here, I'm talking about the government, U.S. government, who are part of a club that you and I are not in it, as George Carlin said. All right. So then we have the Russians. The Americans wanted Snowden be extradited without a protocol of extradition, nothing like that. Russia said no, we were not going to do that, and that was that. If you remember that meeting between Putin and Obama, and they canceled all kind of meetings they were supposed to have, and then the United States started, like they always do, the government, putting sanctions on other states. But the problem is this: they like sanctioning other states, but when the other states sanction them back with the same level, the same thing, they don't like it. So that's an attitude or of a dictator who expects to punch but not be punched back, or a child who wants that toy, but when someone else wants the same toy, he doesn't want to give it back so the other person can play, the other kid. So that you can see it nowadays. When I'm not going to get into it right now, but the first thing that the United States did was kicking out some diplomatic personnel from California. I think it was a Russian um cultural consulate or something, and they kicked them out from the west coast of the United States. The Russians did the same thing. The Americans were all upset. How do the Russians dare to do such a thing? 2013, and since then it was one after another sanctions. Look at the GDP of Russia. I just posted a video regarding the GDP of Russia. They were going up. Has there any connection with Russia becoming stronger? I will discuss that a little bit later. Let's go to the next issue, which is still in the economics. You know, no, the Russian products are banned now in the West, um, and Russian businesses have no access to U.S. markets, so they kick them out. Now the Russians will turn around and have their no BRICS with they have China, they have India, they have Middle East, they have Africa. That's the rest of the world without the Western countries. So they've already calculated that, looking at what they already do, and they're going to do with the Chinese a new system of that will replace Swift. They already started this, so that means they planned it before. Go to the military aspect. The military aspect, we have NATO, who is just an organization who's playing the policeman of the world. And NATO now, all of a sudden, because of this uh, situation in Ukraine, new members will want to come and pay, which is what Norway and Sweden, for instance. And now they want Ukraine, Georgia, and other ones. They want to join all of a sudden. Now, I remember when Romania asked to join NATO, and there were some very strict points and conditions that Romania had to fulfill in order to be accepted over there. Now, when you hear Ukraine and Georgia and these guys just want to, it was a process that took years for Romania to adhere to be accepted into NATO. So when you hear that, oh, and the same thing with European Union, Romania and other countries had a long process. They had to check mark a lot of things in there, like the corruption and so on. I think Ukraine is like 149 on the world out of 193 countries as corruption. So it's not like the paradise this American mass media portray Ukraine to be. Just cut that thing. Corrupt country, very corrupt country. Well, you want that in the European Union? That's up to you. That's fine. You want it in NATO? That's fine. But I'm just saying, all of a sudden, the standards of being a member, accepted as a member in the European Union and in NATO, seem to just disappear. All the standards or the barrier or the things that you have to check mark are gone. So think about that one. And they're not going to probably be accepted, I'm just saying, but it's an opportunity. They're going to get more members, going to get the club, which has one leader. NATO, just to make sure, has one leader, and then it has vassals, countries that do what they say. That's what it is. It's not like an equal vote, and when NATO decides to do something, they show you that they all meet together and they make a decision together. It's not like that. It's not like that. I mean, if you think that's like that, you're naive. And I'm telling you that with a straight face. It's not like that. The same in the European Union. There are certain leaders over there. It's not Romania, Poland, and these little guys. No, it's just Great Britain went. It's out. Now it's Germany and France. And Italy tries to play a role, but no. So that's it. Germany, the main one, and then somewhere here is France, and then the rest on the fifth place, everybody else. And then we go to from the military, we go to the media. The media started here in the West banning the other version, other medias. That it's free speech, free mass media. No, they blocked the media from there. So we see a rupture. We have our clubs media that we're gonna have our people, and the rest are gone. And the rest will do the same thing. The Russians, the Chinese, the Indians, the rest of the world will do the same thing. So we have the little club here. It's gonna be with NATO. It's gonna be economically bullying everybody, and its own media, and its own people who will be convinced, their population will be convinced that they are on the right side of the history and they are perfect, and everybody else is evil and somewhere below. That's how it is. That's how it's perceived from a person or people who come from abroad here. And I don't really complain about that because that's the mentality of a strong uh, entity. You crush everybody around you because you're the elephant in the room. You're the boss, and that's the mentality. Nothing wrong with that. But the problem is not you're not the only one. So that's why I try to form your little clique and try to attack the other clique. And the other clique is not a saint clique. It's the same thing. We do the same thing because it's human nature. All right. So I was saying about the EU membership. They dropped the standards. Now the problem is this is what I'm going to see in next. Remember when Soviet Union in 1979, I think, invaded Afghanistan. What did the United States and some Western countries do? They provided training and weaponry to some guys over there in Afghanistan to fight the Soviets. That was great. The problem is that was great, but you provided people without vetting them. So those people became the ISIS and the Al Qaeda and all those guys. So they because you armed people without knowing who they were and what ideologies. So you looked in a short term, just get the Russians out. And over there, they spread into Pakistan, they spread in the Middle East, they spread wherever they spread. And then Syria, and then we have the Caliphate. And then we have the Russians to come and clean them out, not Americans, but never, maybe 10%, but whatever, what do I know? So, and then we go here to this so-called, or not called, because there's a tragedy actually, but the so-called volunteers who come from you don't know where, they pour into to Ukraine to help the cause of Ukrainians, but you don't know who they are. So you arm these guys, you give them you give them weapons, you give them ammunition, you give them logistics, you give them all, and you put them in Ukraine. But the way they went in Ukraine, they can come back into West. And you don't know who you armed. You don't know. They say, well, I'm going to fight for that. Okay, let's go. Let's say they go some Croatians over there, as I heard. Or Croatians, let's say 300. And they go back into Croatia. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to go and be peasants again or something? No, they're going to be what they are. They're going to be mercenaries. And they're not going to stop there. So what I'm trying to say is that these people who are armed as volunteers and hailed by the Western press, yes, volunteers, look, big art. You don't know who they are. And once they go one direction, they will come back and they will go in your countries. You have refugees. That's a tragedy. But you don't know who those are. You want to accept each and every refugee. You don't know who those refugees are. You do not know. And they will want to pour in your countries. Plus the mercenaries or the patriots, or how do you want to call them, with weapons. So think about that. And then they will put in other countries and so on. And if, let's say, you accept, you get whatever remains out of Ukraine, you get it into European Union, you're gonna get these guys over there too, with freedom of movement in European Union. Just remember, that's very dangerous. But what do I know, right? So it's gonna be a fragmentation. A world is gonna be bipolar, not bipolar, but has two poles of power. One is gonna be United States with his vassals, and the other one probably is gonna be a combination between India, China, Russia, and so on. If these guys uh, they want to assassinate a president elect of a country, he could be bad, he could be good. He doesn't fit your definition of, or he doesn't follow your order. How can you come in front like Lindsey Graham came and said Putin has to be taken out? And there are some guys who millionaires, billionaires who said they're going to pay $1 million for whomever kills Putin. What is this? I mean, let's think it's the other way. If a country would say that, let's do this to this or that, that country will be, that's it, sanctions and whatever, strangled. So that's uh, how I see things will develop. We're going to have a Europe, uncertain Europe, with the United States as its leader. You got Australia too. Let's put that too, or New Zealand, another one. And then you have China, uh, Russia, maybe India, and then the other pole with other countries. They're gonna fight for vassals. They all and influence. That's what I think is going to end after all this thing, because economically they will probably it's going to be like it was in the Soviet Union, the Curtain, so called, where it was a paradigm, and that paradigm was we are the good people, they are the bad people, and then the governments in both sides they kept their population in check because they say, well, if you don't, we do this because we have to counter them. In the West, we do this because we have to counter them. And the population accepted the way they accepted masks during this virus, because it was the virus for the good of the community. The same is going to play the same thing as played over there. And behind under the table, these two blocks will cooperate, but will not know that because we have to be controlled. So this is my assessment of the future after Ukraine. I don't think the war would spill, but who knows? And if Russia is going to be provoked like from NATO countries, and they're going to shoot something towards Russia, I guarantee you Russia will shoot back. So let's say Poland would shut an airplane and fighter jet of Russia. Poland is going to get it, and when Poland is going to get it, let's see what NATO is going to do. I mean, Russia is not playing anymore, and they're just waiting. And Russia planned this for at least 10 years. All this that's happening right now. When those guys now started implementing the Minsk agreements, so this when the West comes with a sanction, these guys just take the file. Okay, this is for this sanction. Okay, we do this. Then when these guys were another sanction, they take another file. Okay, this is the file for this sanction, because the next day they react. When Western United States and the three whatever they do something, these guys react the next day with something like a definite. It's not like in a scrambling to do something. It's something that this is already in place, was already calculated. There was already calculated. So what's next? The only thing that could happen could be atomic bomb and invasion, military invasion. That's not going to happen. So I think these guys on the West, they played their aces from the sleeves. They're done. They're done. What else can they do? They're not going to put no-fly zone in Ukraine, because there's the risk of the Americans shooting down a Russian plane. And what's going to happen? Hot war? I don't think they want hot war. You don't want hot war. Do I? For Ukraine? No, no. So nevertheless, this is what I had to say today regarding my assessment of the future after all this incident comes down, or even if it explodes to a different dimension, then we're gonna have more things. But I would give it 90% of what I said and 10% something that something else could come up. So thank you very much for being with me today again. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just. See ya. Ciao.